welcome to this webinar within the webinar series of the OECD UNEP Global PFC Group. So we have a webinar series on PFASs, and the focus of the group is really to support the SICEM resolutions on shifting to safer alternatives for PFAS. So you're welcome also to view previous webinars that we have the recordings on the OECD PFAS website, and certainly the Secretariat would look for any suggestions from you as well as to future webinar topics. So we have you all on mute today. We had about 250 people register, which is great. I'm not sure if everyone will join in, but that's super if they do. So today I'd really like to welcome two representatives from GORE, Joe Carlin and John Hammerschmidt, and they'll be talking to us, discussing with us the journey that GORE has been on in terms of finding alternatives to per and polyfluoroalkyl substances of concern, and what some of the challenges they've had and the continuing challenges. So really welcome their participation today in order to share their learnings with everyone else. So we'll have about a 45-minute presentation and then about 10 to 15 minutes for questions after that. So I'll turn things over to Joe Carlin, who will start us off. Joe, please go ahead.
All right, just checking if you can hear me okay.
Yes, perfectly.
All right, thank you. So thanks. My name is Joe Carlin. I'm a member of GORE's Global Fluoro Materials Platform. So it's a focus on the global supply chain. And I'm also a member of our Enterprise Fluoro Materials Stewardship Team. I've been at GORE for over 21 years, developing expanded PTFE membranes and protective fabrics and industrial applications, and ensuring that the fluoropolymers that we purchase for the enterprise meet our technical requirements, and also a focus on the stewardship of these fluoro materials. So today, we want to go through a brief introduction to GORE, and then I'm going to talk about the PTFE transition from the legacy polymerization processing aids. So I'll go through an overview of the PTFE, and then the motivation, challenges, and results of that work. John will be speaking to the development of alternative water repellent textile coatings. Some of the audience might not be familiar with W.L. Gore & Associates. We were founded in 1958 by Bill and Vive Gore in the basement of their home as an entrepreneurial venture. It was built on the belief that the new polymer could provide high value to society. And they also had a vision of how the company could be organized to best utilize the talents of each person in that venture or enterprise. And today we've grown to over 10,500 associates. We refer to our employees as associates, which emphasize everybody shares in the success of the enterprise. And our annual revenues are around $3.7 billion. And we remain privately held so we can focus on the long-term payoff rather than short-term gain. So our 60 years of research and expanded fluoropolymers is the core of our technical capability, and our fundamental understanding of the properties of PTFE based materials help us with the thousands of products that we are able to produce to change outcomes for people around the world. So one of our core values at GORE is our commitment to delivering products that meet our customer expectations and are fit for their intended end use. This sounds kind of like a simple premise, but it differentiates us from our competitors because of our deep commitment to use sound science and fundamental understanding of our products to ensure that we can live up to this standard and stand behind our products. So pictured on this slide is our enterprise divisional organization, showing the fabrics, medical products, and performance solutions divisions. And below each division is a representation of the products enabled by our material understanding. So I'm part of a group that's called Core Technology that produces the PTFE powder and transition it into the intermediates to make all of our products. And what we're probably best known for our Gore-Tex fabric, we make medical devices used in the treatment of cardiovascular disease, filter bags that capture mercury and dioxin from air emissions, and also some important components in fuel cell technology. These are just a few examples of the products that leverage the properties of PTFE and other fluoropolymers. So as I was saying, we've got deep understanding, and we can tailor the PTFE to make expanded PTFE that have various structures based on the applications, such as high and low density, tight or open porosity, thickness or thickness, strength orientation, and multiple geometries. And it comes in many forms, including tapes, membranes, films, sheets, rods. And we apply various proprietary modifications to produce these highly valuable products. And since discovering the expanded PTFE, like I said, we call it ePTFE, in 1969, Gore developed products using the combination of this ePTFE and complementary material science expertise, so we can have a good understanding of the application requirements. And with each new application, we're delivering some materials that improve lives. So a quick overview of PTFE. So PTFE is polytetrafluoroethylene. It's the most common fluoropolymer used by Gore. It's a simple structure. It's a carbon backbone with fluorine attached directly, and it's a very large molecular weight, estimated to range from hundreds of thousands to millions of Daltons. And so the type of PTFE that we use is called fine powder. So it's pictured on that top image there. It's a fine white powder, and it's polymerized using a process that requires a polymer processing aid. So this is where the PFAS of concern enter the supply chain. And so for Gore, prior to 2015, our suppliers used PFOA and then transitioned to something else after that. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So this polymer is what we use to make our products. Another version of PTFE is called an aqueous dispersion. It's a suspension of the same PTFE particles in a water-based mixture. And so it uses the same polymerization route. It does use the PPA as well. And it's used for coating different articles. And finally, the third version of PTFE is called granulated powder. It's also known as molding powder. And it's made through a different polymerization process that does not require that polymerization processing aid. And so it has its own unique market, but for Gore, it is something that does not fit with our needs. We cannot make expanded PTFE articles with this type of PTFE. So typically, PTFE and other fluoropolymers have not been the focus of regulatory restriction efforts like those being applied to PFAS of concern. This was demonstrated in a peer-reviewed article that PTFE satisfies the OECD consensus criteria for a polymer of low concern. So now I'd like to talk about the transition from the historical use of PFOA into the alternatives for the fine powder PTFE. So in 2006, the US EPA started a voluntary stewardship program and invited 8 manufacturers of fluoromaterials to reduce the PFOA emissions by 95% before 2010, and then virtually eliminate them by 2015. So Gore was not the manufacturer of PTFE, but participated as a processor. As you can see, the significance of this change would impact all the products made by Gore. And so the connection between Gore and this transition was the trace residual PPA presence in that purchased PTFE, which is then further reduced in our processing. This transition would be really disruptive to the industry. If you think about it, there's been 50 years of operating and experience and optimization, and now a new technology would have to be used and redevelop all the PTFE fine powder grades. So here we see a timeline that shows the regulatory progress of PFAS of concern in the top section, with Gore's investments and initiatives below the dashed line. The Gore established initiatives to address safety, health, and environmental needs to continuously improve our process. We voluntarily invested in better control technology for each process and plant that was processing PFAS of concern. When Gore suppliers transitioned to alternative polymerization aids, we put together a cross-functional team to evaluate the alternatives to minimize Gore's associate exposure to the alternative polymerization aids, verify the effectiveness of our environmental controls, and also assure that any small residuals remaining in our products cannot affect the safety or performance of our products. So one of our goals was to do product stewardship reviews, and so we employed our Gore technologists who assisted us with the transition to the PFOA replacements by using sound science and standard best practices for toxicological risk assessment. The bottom section is showing the products and how they've undergone changes related to this topic over time as well. So our transition from long chain to short chain chemistries began in the late 1990s and involved in new coating technologies for fabrics over the last 2 decades. And John will address this topic in his portion of the presentation. So although this diagram shows finite ending to each of the blocks, I want to stress that this is a journey and there's continuous improvement efforts going on all the time in our manufacturing areas, support systems, and product fitness for use assessments. So I'll focus on the technical project related to the transition of the PPAs in the next section. So our journey started with assessment of and requirement that our PTFE performance for our future state had to match the original. And so to do that, we had to look at all the mechanical and thermal properties that were related to the PTFE. So if you remember the slide in the beginning with the division of products, it's a large number of products shown. So the magnitude of this challenge was kind of demonstrated early on when we were trying to assess what we would have to accomplish and look at the quantity of products that we might have to undergo this retesting for the fitness for use for our markets. And so doing that, we mapped out the entire catalog of products that we used by division to try to put this information into a spreadsheet to get a handle on the project scope. And what we learned was that Excel 2003 did not have an infinite number of rows. It runs out at row 65,536. So we basically broke Excel. So using some other tools, we put the whole product portfolio together and realized that we had 95,000 parts to assess. And so to shorten up that time frame for doing that assessment and evaluation, we had to find ways to really clearly identify the key attributes of the PTFE. And so we looked at it as an exercise to fingerprint the performance. And so to do that, we had to look at developing new techniques to do the analytical testing. So we developed some proprietary polymer testing models, and they were based on well-known polymer tests, which is kind of shown in the graph at the top with a stress strain curve, and how that translated into the shape at the bottom that would describe the actual things that we do with our expanded PTFE technology into the microstructures that provide those attributes. And so the development cycle took many iterations, and although it reduced the amount of testing and qualification experiments necessary to prove the equivalence, numerous validations were still required to satisfy our product claims and our customer needs. But along the way, we also had to make sure that everything was suitable for our process, and so we had to evaluate the engineering controls we had in place through the processing as well as our environmental controls to ensure that they were adequate for the replacement alternatives. And so at the end of this journey, we did successfully transition all of those products on time and without disruption. And so this took hundreds of associates to tackle this job. And because of this commitment to ensuring these products were going to be fit for use, we stopped doing a lot of innovation so that we could focus on this technical challenge. And so during the 9 years it took us to to transition from the early development stages of the PTFE available through the success of the Gore products, we spent a lot of hours not doing new product development. That came out, so the ray of sunshine through this change was we sure learned a lot more about how to paste process PTFE and relate that to the products and performance. And so we're able to use that knowledge that we learned to leverage into new product developments today. So that's the end of my section, and I'll transfer over to John for the conclusion of the presentation.
So hello, my name is John Hammerschmidt. I'm the Sustainability Technical Champion for Gore Fabrics Division. As a matter of introduction, I've been a research scientist focusing on development of polymeric materials and coatings for a little over 20 years, the last 10 being with Gore. I'm currently leading the technical effort to deliver on Gore Fabrics' goal for eliminating PFCs and environmental concern from our fabrics consumer products. Today I'll be sharing some of our portions of this alternative materials development journey that we're on. And the focus today will be specifically on our consumer products business. To start out, I thought I would show some of our product forms. Gore is an ingredient brand, and we produce laminates. The laminate structure is a cross-section right here. There potentially could be a backer or a lining. Then there's our Gore-Tex membrane, which is provides the waterproofness and allows breathability of moisture vapor. And on the top layer is an outer material or an outer shell textile. And that is treated with a durable water repellent. This allows for beading, but also has impacts on water weight gain, which has implications for comfort. In addition, we also have different product forms, which are gloves as well as shoes. So we do provide also inserts for both of these product forms. Gore has a guaranteed to keep you dry promise for our Gore-Tex windproof, waterproof, and breathable products. So we take fitness for use very seriously, assuring products will do what they say will do. And if you are not completely satisfied with the waterproofness, windproofness, or breathability of these products, repair it, replace it, or refund your purchase price. Also, just a note here, I am providing some references on the bottom of several of these pages if you want more information. So here's two groupings of some consumer end uses. The first is what we refer to as general outdoor end uses. So these are things like general hiking, camping, lift surf, skiing, urban exploration and rain, things like golf. And we refer to these as general outdoor end uses. We also have another group of products that are referred to as specialized outdoor, or internally, many times we refer to these as extreme and extended end uses. These would be things like mountaineering, free-ride skiing, multi-day trekking. Each collection is fit for use for the targeted end use and comes with our guaranteed to keep you dry promise. So let's step into our goal to eliminate PFCs of environmental concern. As you'll see here, we use the term PFC. Throughout this presentation, I will use PFC terminology as opposed to perfluorinated, polyfluoroalkyl alkyl substance terminology. I'll use them interchangeably for the presentation. PFC terminology has been adopted quite a bit in this industry, and I want to be also consistent with the language that we put together for our. So let's start out with the definition of per and polyfluorinated compounds of environmental concern. When we crafted the goal, we required and wanted a clear definition to describe the materials that are in scope for elimination. We wanted this to be clear for our internal developments, also to be clear to our material suppliers and also our customers. Given the general technical complexity of these definitions and acronyms in this space, sometimes there can be confusion. To be a PFC of environmental concern, a chemical or material must exhibit all three of these traits. The first is highly fluorinated. I think that's self-explanatory, either per or polyfluorinated organic substances. The second is small enough to be bioavailable. so capable of crossing the cell membrane. This is derived from the polymer of low concern framework, which sets a threshold of molecular weight of 1,000, and we added a factor of 3x to that. And finally, persistence, so half-life greater than 2 months. I'll also note that if a material is not itself a PFC of environmental concern, but if it is nonetheless, it should be considered one if it's shown to be a precursor. So let's step into the goal. In February 2017, we set ourselves an ambitious goal to eliminate PFC's environmental concern from the life cycle of our products. And this came about in a two-step initiative. The first key milestone is by 2020, we're looking to eliminate 85% of our product units, the life cycle of PFC's environmental concern from 85% of our units. This includes jackets, shoes, gloves, and accessories. The second initiative from this, from the consumer market, is between 21 and 23, Core Fabrics will remove the remaining PFC's environmental concern from our products. I wish to highlight the life cycle aspect. So this is beyond just the product side. This goal encompasses both upstream into our supply chain as well as downstream to end of life. To meet this goal, it requires development of new alternative materials for our membranes and water-repellent coatings. Therefore, this is a significant effort to transition our products, and it touches all of our products that we have. I wish to also mention, also, as we reported earlier this year, we're working very hard to deliver against this 2020 goal, but we've had to accept that innovation doesn't always go to schedule, and we have communicated to the marketplace that we will not meet at least the full goal of this 85% by 2020. But the progress we're making gives us confidence that we will meet these goals, albeit a little delayed. Just highlight a few of the other milestones within our goal. We spoke about the first two aspects. We're also introducing and have completed this milestone, achieved this milestone of introducing a new DWR for the fall-winter 2018 season, and that's what I'm going to be focusing on going forward, talking in this presentation. We've provided product labeling as well to allow consumers to connect to Gore Fabrics progress. We have a milestone for new EPTFE barriers made without using PFC's environmental concern as polymerization aids, as Joe mentioned earlier. We also have stated publicly that we are exploring and actively pursuing complementary membrane materials, and have focused our efforts in this space. We have focused efforts here, but still significant technical work to do. I'll allude to this a little bit later as well, but we have a parallel development in DWR for some of the more challenging technical uses. We have recently completed an incineration study as well to evaluate representative municipal incineration conditions, and details of that study have been published in Chemosphere earlier this year. And finally, we have standardized our hazard assessment approach. We've completed that at the end of 2018, and going forward in the future, we'll be looking to report against that as well. So now let me focus on one aspect of this, the remainder part, and it's really towards discussing the efforts that it took to deliver on our 2018 new DWR. I'm going to start with a little bit of background on DWR, then discuss some evaluation methods, and then a timeline of what was a multi-year development effort to give you some context of the challenge that we faced. So on the left here in this image, I have a picture of a jacket here that the DWR is not functional and is completely wet out. On the right, I have a picture of a DWR that is functional, and you can see the visual aesthetic beading that's present. So without DWR, the shell textile does wet out. The fabric weight increases, breathability decreases since it's blocked by the water, and insulation is lost. The loss of insulation really is due to, without DWR, air is a very good insulator. And in the face fabric, it's replaced by water. And water has a greater than 20x higher thermal conductivity compared to air. And this translates to a rapid change in local skin temperature. With DWR, obviously you'll see a visual aesthetic of the beading. It reduces water weight gain, maintains that warmth, and improves comfort. And I was looking for a concise way of summing up some of the details of the importance of DWR. And I actually found this quote in a previous review article. And basically sums it up well, I think. It's, avoiding whiteout can be a comfort issue, such as cycling or walking to work, but it can also be essential protection in more extreme conditions, especially when no shelter can be reached. Whiteout can cause significant cooling of the wearer, and under extreme conditions, this can be life-threatening. Here's a list of a number of criteria that are required for DWR and that we consider during our development. So obviously, there's aspects of repellency, water and or oil. So as far as initial performance, but also more importantly is the durability of this. So there can be different stresses that can reduce the performance overall. Such as we want to look at wash durability. There can be contamination aspects of detergents and other materials there, and also flex damage. Additionally, we look at field performance as well, which can effectively stress and challenges the DWR in many of its failure modes. There's comfort aspects, which I alluded to already. One additional one beyond just the breathability or moisture transport that DWR potentially could affect, there's also aspects of stiffness in hand. There's aesthetics and quality issues in particular. There's a whole host of these. I'm just listing a few here. Color fastness is one that basically characterizes the material's color resistance to fading or running. And finally, product stewardship. So Gore does use third-party standards. So we've adopted Okotex 100 standard as a product safety standard, which requires all of our materials to be approved. In addition, our finished fabric laminates undergo tests for harmful substances to ensure that finished textile laminates are safe to be worn from a chemical point of view. Also in 2010, all of Gore Fabric's manufacturing sites have been certified to comply with the Blue Sign system. This is a comprehensive environmental and safety scheme that's used in the textile industry. Blue Sign regularly revises their limits and usage bans for chemical substances, and they publish these in the Blue Sign system substance list. And finally, also, we do utilize life cycle analysis, and on our webpage, we actually have several full life cycle analyses of some of our products, and we've also done one for DWR in the past. And we utilize this to understand also some of the impacts, such as water and carbon footprint, in addition to the chemical footprint. All of those need to be looked at holistically. So I think probably to this group, the material sets in here are quite familiar. There's been discussions on these in the past, I believe. Traditional materials that have been used in the past from the textile industry have been start out with long side chain fluorinated polymers. So I'm showing here a homopolymer of the fluoroalkyl material set. It does have a long chain on it. Gore completed our final elimination of these materials from our functional fabrics at the end of 2013. So we are no longer using those materials. Our transition materials were into short side chain fluorinated polymers, showing two different varieties, commonly known in the industry as C6 or C4. There are various versions of these. So again, I'm just showing a homopolymer, but there are copolymers of these materials, different aspects of these polymers as well. And those changes in the polymer makeup can actually affect the DWR performance. So not not all these materials have exactly the same performance. And finally, the topic of much effort in development these days is the non-fluorinated polymer alternatives. Wide range of materials that this encompasses, which includes polyurethanes, acrylates, silicones, wax dispersions, many structures like dendritic materials, and hybrids of these. At Gore, we have some proprietary rain room test methods, as well. This is how we do our evaluations to down select materials. In our rain rooms, these methods mimic real raindrop size distribution and impact pressures. We can evaluate beating and measure water weight gain. Our modes incorporate many different stresses. So initial performance, we also looked at many different stress states and also regeneration. And over the decade or so, we've developed this test method. It has connection to our field performance data. In terms of field trials, it is a capability that we have to place materials in a wide range worldwide in different environments. We treat these as experiments, and we can design the level of control and even take jackets at different intervals back from the field and do additional testing on that. We can target end uses. These are statistically relevant sample sizes we use to allow for generalization to a larger population. And we put significant hours of wear. These are hundreds of hours of wear over many months and can be more than a year in some cases as well. And finally, also want to make note the care and use contamination is also probed in these methods. And what we found is the durability of the water repellency can be affected by various contaminations, such as in the care with wash detergents, as well as in use with things like sweat, semen, sebum, and the like. So let's look at some data here. This is our rain room lab evaluation. And this is looking across around 25 or 30 different materials that we've evaluated. And these are all non-fluorinated based DWR polymers. In this plot, you'll see a water weight gain on the y-axis and beating rating on the x. Highest performance would be towards the lower right-hand part of this chart. And to give you some calibration, the beating performance here is a visual rating from 0 to 5, 5 being the highest. And anything less than 3 is beginning to some degree of wet out. And as you'll see in our evaluations here, we have a wide range of performance with the non-fluorinated based materials, and I'm comparing them to a high-performance short-chain based polymer DWR. Additionally, you'll see there is some slight measurable difference between our short-chain based material and the non-fluorinated materials that we've evaluated. But you'll see across that range, some materials have essentially no performance all the way to higher performing ones. And we use this method to down select further in terms of our evaluations and go into field trials. Also want to note, as I think this group knows quite well and has been published quite a bit and discussed, is these non-fluorinated materials do not provide any oil rating based on the AAT-CC 118 test. So let's step through some of the development timelines that we set out in January 2017. And as you'll see, there's some initial, separated these out in terms of general outdoor and also in terms of specialized and these extreme extended development timeline. First, we show here in light gray is the technology development. So these are developing the base materials and coatings that we have. Then we move into a product development phase, and then into commercialization. And as you see, this commercialization piece can be quite a long process. Traditionally, in the outdoor industry, the timelines can be between 1.5 and 2 years. And a large portion of that is basically engaging with our customers and also allowing them time from their supply chains, as well as creating their portfolio of products that they want to launch. Other things that are included in this is commercialization, scale-up, production, and overall shipment. So let's focus on one aspect of this, is the milestone that we put together on this 2018 non-fluorinated-based DWR shipment. So let's drill down in terms of what that development looked like. So here's a timeline of our development of that. It started actually back in mid-2012. We did an initial landscape investigation of what was the state of the art in terms of knowledge for these various materials in terms of DWR polymers, basically doing our homework. We launched a formal project around 2013, evaluated these materials, down selected, and put into our, one of our first field trials with these materials in comparison to polymer. We completed that trial in 2014 and benchmarked against the performance that we had at the time. That field trial, the performance actually that we had was quite poor. We had really strong feedback from our users in terms of the performance level was not adequate or not fit for use for the applications that we have for Gore-Tex. We went back. We went back to the lab. There was significant development in, I'd say, 2014, 2015 by many suppliers, many sort of significant efforts in this space. Went back and did another round of evaluations of materials in that time frame, and that's actually the data, some of which is that data that I showed earlier. That went into a field trial after down selection. During that field trial, we actually, given that we were looking ahead to 2018, we started engaging with customers, and we started to actually begin some of the validation and efforts in parallel, knowing that we were trying to hit this milestone of 2018. During that evaluation and field trial, we also learned of some challenges that we had to address. One was some manufacturing aspects in terms of garment manufacturing. As you can envision, there's a lot of handling that occurs with that, and just hand oils as well as sewing oils had some impacts on this, and we had to address that. And also there were some quality concerns that we had in terms of the aesthetics and other details that are required for DWR outside of water repellency. We did some reformulation, started out in the second field trial, and completed that in 2018. Ultimately, we launched this product in a trade show in early 2018, and then made it to retail in autumn/winter 2018, meeting our timeline goal. And in terms of the launch time of that, greater than 50% of our general outdoor volume has been transitioned and labeled as such to recognize in the industry to allow people to follow our progress as well. Also want to note, in parallel, we have recognized, we have recognized that the need for higher performing DWRs beyond this level of performance, and we have a parallel effort going on in this area. And we recently completed a field trial focused in understanding this area more. Those materials, we still have some efforts to do and some technical development. And we're looking at a milestone goal that we put out towards the 2023 timeframe. So in conclusion, just want to thank you for the time and opportunity to present today. I hope Joe and I have been able to convey about the passion we have for the products we make, and our focus on the fitness for use, and also our commitment to continue to improve the environmental footprint of our products over the life cycle.
Okay, I think that will end things there for today. So just like to close by thanking again both Joe Carlin and John Hammersmith, and also their colleagues from Gore, in being willing to put forward this webinar, and also some of my colleagues here, Marie-Ange and Laura, who helped organize the webinar. And Also, great to have a large number of participants on the call today, and continuing to share these experiences to help everyone move to safer alternatives for PFASs. So thank you for sharing your experiences today.